All right, well, happy Wednesday. Sorry. Happy Wednesday. Let's fix the sound on this thing. We are K-Talk Radio. Good morning, everybody. You're listening to PrepperCon Radio, now switching our name over to Prepper Talk Radio.
Yes.
Trying to get a little more mainstream, I guess you could say. A little easier to understand who we are as we broadcast.
It's being droopy over here.
And check into our radio broadcast every week, Wednesdays, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. here on K-Talk, AM 630. You can also look on our Facebook page, PrepperCon, and you can see our broadcast, our video cast.
Yeah, I guess
we put that up about a day and a half late every time, so that you can see that, record, watch that, tune in again. We've got our whole archive on YouTube.
Well, I haven't gotten last week's up yet.
We get a little busy sometimes.
Yes.
All of us have full-time jobs, and we do this because we feel like there's a huge need. People need to get prepared, and it's just not happening on a normal basis. Wake up, America! That's my last chance to get.
Should that be the title or theme to our show? Wake up, America!
Wake up, America!
I
think that's a show already.
Is that a show already?
I don't know. Good morning, Vietnam. We're not in
Good morning,
Vietnam,
America.
though.
Wake up, America.
Good morning, listeners. So we are.
What should we talk about today, Scott?
Well, we have a fun topic today. We're going to be talking about getting lost and getting found. Getting lost and getting found. One of the biggest problems in the wild, as well as in urban terrain, is people are using these little square and rectangular devices to try to figure out where they're going all the time. And when those don't work,
completely lost.
They don't know where to go.
Now, I was a property manager for a couple of years, and we had a particular property where the GPS location would not show up on Google Maps or anything like that. So they would put the address into it, and they would not get there because it was too new, I guess. It wasn't in the database
it's a dark
yet.
spot. It's a digital
Yeah,
poop,
and so many people had no idea how to get there without their GPS. And that's my big concern is that we are handicapping ourselves. GPS are great. They're fantastic. I love them. I use them whenever necessary. But that's not always necessary.
Batteries go out.
When you're under a heavy tree cover or when you're in a slot canyon or...
There's a number of different reasons
like
you're not going to be able to have that work for you. So we want to talk about that today. We're going to have a fun show, but before we get going too far, we want to remind you that this show is sponsored by our good friends over at Survival Medical. Survival-medical.com is the website. Check it out. They just launched their marine line products. So if you're boating this summer, if you're going to be out in the wild, having fun, on a boat, around a boat, near a boat, in the water, take this kit. It's waterproof. It's sealed until you need it. It's awesome. All of their stuff, they've kind of cracked the code on long-term storage of your medical gear. Usually your gear is going to run out of usefulness within about 18 months or so, 2 years. Things just expire. Well, they've cracked the code on those expiration dates, and that's the awesome thing about it. So once you open it, then you've got an expiration date about 18 months later on some of those items.
Yeah, on some of them.
I love that everything is modular, so you've got multiple packs. And hopefully John makes it in today. He's actually one of our guests, and he's with Survival Medical, but he's also the son of a surveyor. I was going to say the father of a surveyor. That doesn't matter. Son of a surveyor, and he's got some really cool Indian roots. Where he
grew up in Missouri,
Missouri. He's a good old Missouri boy.
Backwoods. So, us here in Utah, it's pretty easy to navigate here in Utah. This is my opinion, because we have the mountains, we have a lot of geographic features that we can navigate from. Now, if you're living out on the plains, Missouri, Kansas, how do you navigate other than map and compass and so forth? So that's what we want to talk about today. Is of course, GPS takes an important role. Depending on what you're doing and where you're trying to go and how precise you're trying to be in your navigation, in your orienteering. But I want to kind of focus more on survival navigation, survival orienteering, if you want to call it that.
Well, I think one of the big things is people don't realize is there's multiple ways to do this. It's not always just a map and a compass. Understanding the sun's movements across the sky during the day, it's always going to rise in the east and set in the west. That's the simplest start, right?
Pretty simple.
The next simplest thing is nighttime, North Star. However, if there's cloud cover, you can't always identify it.
And it takes a little bit of practice, a little bit of knowledge to identify the North Star.
As does using a compass and a map. And so all of these things, they take time to learn. And so our goal with this conversation is for you to then take it out and go practice some of these things. Go do something. And here's the fun part. It's actually kind of fun to do this.
Oh, absolutely. Ever since I was a kid, got my first compass, I have been absolutely fascinated with why does this needle point north? I mean, we know the Earth has magnetic fields, and we had Ben Davidson on a few weeks ago talking about magnetic fields of the Earth and really how that works, how it protects us, but it also helps us to navigate, and it has for thousands of years. And I just love that this ancient form of travel you can carry in your hand. It's so simple, it's so reliable, and I'm just mesmerized by the compass itself and the history, and there's so many different types of compasses out there and ways to navigate. Just love it.
Yeah. And it's fun because once you understand how to orientate your compass and compare that to a map, you can identify exactly where you are in that map. You know, and then you can route away to wherever you want to go.
Now, my focus has been, because living here in Utah, it's pretty easy to get around. The Mormons made made that sure because the way they laid out their streets and so forth, north, south, east, west, running in a grid pattern. Pretty easy to get around in the urban and suburban environments. Now there's the tree streets and there's different named streets rather than having different actual coordinates of north, south, east, west, which it makes it the easiest to navigate here in Utah. And I get I've had a lot of people come here to Utah and say, how do you get around here? How do you, which I don't get that at all. I don't understand that at all. It's as simple as it gets.
It goes back to basic geometry and when we're learning how to use a grid map.
Yeah, there you go.
And this is true for most cities. I mean, you'll be driving, for example, I grew up in Denver. Everything's curvy. There's nothing that goes north-south parallel, east-west parallel, unless those are just like the randomly placed streets. All the rest of the streets are on kind of a diagonal. And then the rest of them, and that's the city, and then everything else is squiggly. Everything's crossing over everything. It just doesn't make sense. But it was all built on the side of hills, and so it's all based on the topography.
Right. Contour lines.
And so you've got all these weird streets, and you're like, okay, my neighborhood was all constellation and star-based, and so I lived on Delphi Drive. There was Sagittarius, there was Olympus. I mean, all these streets around us. And so you had to kind of remember where everything was.
Get to know the constellations so you can more easily navigate your neighborhood.
Didn't matter, though.
Really?
You just had to memorize the street.
Memorize the street numbers.
And so to ride my little bicycle as a 6-year-old kid across the neighborhood to find my friend's house, at first it's a huge, daunting task. But by the time I moved away, I was like, oh, I knew where every street was in the neighborhood. And that's how people are whether they have a place that they live. You get used to it. But it takes time. Yeah,
and there are certain techniques that you can use, and whether you use them by the names that maybe they're called. Like, for example, one word is called, it may be referred to as a handrail. And it's more in a wilderness environment when you are trying to navigate from point A to point B without a trail, without many reference points. There are different ways to navigate. But going back to kind of navigating here in Utah and getting around, we have the mountains. For me, are the largest feature, obviously, and easiest way to navigate. So, in again going back to being a property manager, in trying to explain the location of this particular property that was difficult to find, it was not available on GPS. I say, okay, go north of this location or go south of this location, you'll find it. I'm sorry, I don't know which way is north or south. I'm like, are you kidding me? Do you not know which way is north and south? And there's so many topics we can reach out here. Actually, anciently, 1,000 years ago, whatever, most people would refer, their main direction they would refer to is east because the sun rises in the east. Me, I kind of orient myself toward north, mainly because I've lived on the Wasatch Front here for so long. The mountains are north to south. When I wake up, I look north, and so it's easy to orient myself to the north.
So let's completely jump off that. I want to talk about what do you do when you get lost.
Okay.
Well, because here's what's going to happen. Most people get lost in the city that they're not used to. Most people get lost in the wilderness because they have no idea where their trail is because they didn't prepare. Everything goes back to preparation, right?
Yeah. Let's talk a second about what lost means.
Not knowing where you are in correlation to where everything else is.
Okay, absolutely.
That's the simplest definition.
Okay, in correlation to where you're headed or where you've been.
Or having no clue of where you currently are.
Okay, but if you're in the middle of a city, I don't personally think you can actually be lost when you're in the middle.
Absolutely. Have you been
of a
in New
city.
York?
No, I have not been to New York.
Then you have no clue. When I went to New York, the nice thing about New York is they use a grid system. The Masons developed all of New York. But it doesn't make a whole lot of sense when you live in Utah, where everything's a number grid system. Theirs is a streets and avenues. The only street that made sense to me was Broadway, and it was diagonal through everything else. The center of the street or center of the city is imbalanced on that island. So you've got like 30 streets on one side and 5 streets on the other side of the grid. And so I'm like, the whole time, like, okay, where are we
kind of
getting
like Utah County between cities when you've got an address that ends
and all the public transportation's underground. So you get off of a subway and you have
come up, you don't know
no clue where you are.
I guess
you don't have anything to really tell where you are except for the street signs. When you look up and all you can see around you is buildings everywhere. And they're all falling in, they're all caving in on you.
I guess my definition of lost, and I don't want to admit I'm ever lost. Because
I'm lost all the time. I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because, everyone wants to go exploring and have fun, right?
Right.
To a degree. As a youth, I did that way more than I should. So it's and I consider that to be okay. It's then knowing how to get found again, get yourself orientated to where you want to be.
Yeah, and I think that's where I'm kind of leaning is that, I can honestly say I've never been lost in my entire life. And I may have been off track, but the word lost to me means more than probably it does to you. It's a little more critical to me. When I'm lost, I don't know where I'm at. I don't know which direction I'm going. I don't know where to go, which direction to go to get to a road or to any geographic feature that I'm familiar with, anything like that. And I think that's what lost means to me.
So I look at it as a simple, when you've lost your way.
You're off
you
your
could
particular
be off
path.
by a street. You could be off by a few centimeters. Pilots, they look at their declination. If they're off by a degree, they're going to miss their target completely because they're going for a straight shot for, 300, 500 miles.
And that's something we can talk about on the other side of the break is, like, for me, lost, I've never been lost. I don't know that I'll ever be lost because I've developed a sense of direction within me.
In Utah.
In Utah, in particular. But not just in, Scott's absolutely right. You're absolutely right. However, as long as I know which way to go, I don't feel I'm lost.
So if I drop you in New York right now,
no, absolutely,
you'll be totally screwed.
But I can figure it out shortly, which tells me which is the reason why I say I wouldn't be lost, because I know where I'm at.
You can always correct yourself.
And I know where I'm going. So that's why I don't say lost. So maybe I'm a little too critical on using the word lost. Maybe I need to be more liberal in using that word lost.
I wouldn't say more liberal. I would just say it has a broader sense or broader understanding than what you're giving it. I think all too often we ignore that we're lost. It's easy to be lost. It's simple to just course correct.
So maybe I just need to kind of give in to my pride and say, okay, I'm lost.
Potentially.
Okay.
Well, before we go down to break, we're going to be cutting break here real quick. But before we do that, I want to let you know, Republican presidential candidate Ben Carson will be on K-Talk Media with Sherilyn Eager from our Liberty lineup this Thursday from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. That's huge.
It's a big deal.
Ben Carson, I think he's one of the best candidates we had, and he is awesome. So tune in 12 a.m. to 12 noon this Thursday. Also tune in live for updates from the Republican National Convention in Cleveland right here on AM 630 K-Talk Media. We'll be right back after the break.
Sorry. Talking over the mic.
That intro music's weird on that one. We're going to change that out.
I'll have Kristen
change
that one.
You're not in charge of that anymore.
Okay, you're
going to
do that?
The Carpenters, you've been fired. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Prepper Talk Radio, formerly PrepperCon Radio, on K-Talk, AM 630. Follow us on Facebook. We have a lot of fun here. K-Talk Utah, K-Talk Media.
The new page up there for Prepper Talk.
And then Prepper Talk Radio has a new page. Go follow it. We'll have some fun. We're going to be posting some navigational tips and tricks and things today, as well as some fun pictures of us. And we're going to be launching the website soon. But K-Talk's getting a new website. We've been talking about it. We're like, hey, it's going to go out next week. Oh, it's going to go out next week. Oh, it's going to. I think they're ready to go.
Pretty close, yeah.
I think they're like a smidge away. They're technically lost right now.
If
a few navigation tech helps, which that's the problem. They got to fix their navigation on the website. A little bit of navigation, and they'll be found. So stay tuned, because that's going to come out soon.
So there's the other flip side. If you can't be found, are you lost? No, you're not.
Well,
Not in my mind. Not in my mind.
If you can't be found, you could not want to be found.
Yeah, so you're not lost, but you're not lost.
Right.
Okay.
But if someone can't be found, it doesn't necessarily mean that they don't want to be found. It could mean that they're just lost.
Absolutely. But when it comes to K-Talk, we want to be found.
We want to be found. Absolutely. Okay, so we're talking navigation. We're talking getting lost. Part of the reason we brought this topic up is it's summertime. People like to go hiking, camping, have fun, go to places they've never been, like, say, New York. Try to get used to the different things in each of those cities.
Not me. You won't find me in New York.
Well, you won't find you in New York, even if you got there. I'm like, I'm lost. Hi, guys. I'm Shane. I'm with, I don't know where I am now. Hey.
You don't know me very well, do you?
But here's the cool thing. When it comes to navigation, I mean, everyone, you're going to get lost at some point in your life. If you don't, that means you've never left your home, and that is a sad, sad life.
No, you're absolutely right. And if you don't at some point have that little panic, that little thing that gets you right in your gut that just says, I don't know where I'm at right now. Now, really, honestly, the only time that's really ever happened to me is when I've been turned around in a cave.
Okay, so you've been lost.
I've been in a cave for just a few seconds, for a few minutes, and then I realize...
Ladies and gentlemen, he'll never admit
I am
he was
infallible.
lost.
I'm sorry.
He'll never admit. However, I have had phone calls where he's like, hold on, I need to figure out where I am. That, in and of itself, is lost.
Okay, I will concede to that.
There we go.
But no,
Shane's been lost, ladies and
I'm
gentlemen.
still going to disagree.
He conceded.
Okay, I conceded, but I'm still going to disagree in that what lost really, to me, really means.
Well, if we're going to go off of Merriam-Webster's dictionary as opposed to Shane's dictionary, nobody knows Shane's dictionary except for Shane.
But lost is a sense. It's a feeling. It's I don't know how to explain it.
So when you were a little kid, you never wandered away from your parents at the grocery store?
I have no idea. I don't remember my childhood.
You blocked out all the times you were lost?
I blocked it out.
Okay.
Maybe that's it. Maybe I was lost too many
times. I could banter all day, but let's talk about
that's true.
Staying found, okay?
Yes.
Staying on course.
That is the key. You got to stay found. If you get lost, if you go off track, it's much harder to figure out where you are and how to get back.
So now, if you're new to Utah, or if you don't live in Utah, this applies to pretty much any city you go to. Utah's on the grid system, which is great. All cities are on some sort of a grid system as far as their north, south, east, and west. That's why your mailing address might be 422nd West, John Doe Road, or whatever it is. Or it could be completely on a grid, like here in Utah, where it's 550 South and 720 West, or North, or whatever. But here's the thing that I found is kind of fun, is if you're listening to GPS, you'll catch this. You'll be driving, it'll say turn left or turn right on South State Street.
I was just going to say that.
And I'm like, well, no, I'm turning right. Shouldn't it be going north on State Street? Well, no, it's just saying you're on the south end of the grid line.
Of the grid, yes.
And that's what it's that South State Street or North State Street.
And also looking on Google Maps or Google Earth, it also shows, and if it shows a physical address, it'll say South State Street, or whatever the is.
Exactly.
400 North, South 400 North, whatever, because you're on the south, like you say, you're on the south side of the grid rather than the east side, or the north side, or the east versus west.
Exactly. And that's great, because then you can orient yourself a little bit better to where you are and where you want to go. The other thing is I'm noticing people aren't very good at giving directions anymore.
They're terrible. You're absolutely right.
Because we don't pay attention to our surroundings as much, because we're so focused on our phones and other devices that make life a little bit easier. We've lost sight of all the key landmarks. That's one of the biggest things in finding your direction is looking for the right landmarks. And if you know where certain landmarks are, it's easier to get found. It's easier to find your way. And the same goes for camping. Yeah, and that's hiking.
We could talk about a little bit about triangulation, of how to find your location on a map or your location in the field compared to a map. But going back to the grid system is, and another reason why I feel like I can never get lost in Utah. I'll put that little asterisk there.
Thank you, Mr. World Traveler.
You're absolutely right. I do not
lack thereof.
I do not. I'm not a big traveler. Although, whenever I do plan on going somewhere, I take a map, I get on Google Earth, and I look at the local landmarks, large mountains, whatever I could maybe see above the city line, above the skyline, and so I can, when I get there, I know how to orient myself as to north, south, east, or west. So, in all honesty, okay, if I needed to walk back home, how would I do that? How would I get there? What's my course? What are my landmarks? And of course, I always take a compass with me. It's
keep one in your bag. It's just good to have with you. One of the things that I've always loved is wilderness exploration. I was a scout, did a lot of hikes. I turned a 20-mile hike into a 55-mile hike one time accidentally because I got lost. Mm-hmm. I was the youngest of the 4 scouts that I was with in that little group. There's like 30 of us all together, all numbered up with our leaders. And it was funny because our leader's like, okay, go to the next pylon and stop.
Mm-hmm. Along the trail.
Along the trail. Right. Now, it was funny because we got to the next one, and they're actually cairns, which is a stack of rocks that is obviously not natural. It's like 12 rocks stacked
trail
up.
Marker.
There's also ducks, which is 3 rocks stacked up in an open area. And then you can also have your standard trail markers, and there's the fiberglass ones that they pop into the ground. There's also the tree marker ones, and we'll post that on our Facebook page so you can kind of see the different types. But it's good to know what those mean. Well, we walked up to the cairn, and then we saw another one. We're like, oh, that's the trail. The trail keeps going. And so we went to that one, and then we saw another one. We're like, oh, there it is. And we just kept going. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, shouldn't we stop? And I should have stopped. I should have. Is that little nagging, hey, don't go there. Don't go there. Well, we ended up taking a left when we should have just stopped because we were supposed to take a right.
Because a lot of times these cairns are on a rocky terrain where the trail is not easily distinguished.
And this was a very rocky terrain, so it was like so hard to see.
Yeah, where the trail goes.
But before we got to the rocky area, the trail markers were posts. They were 6-inch posts just sticking out of the ground with a little tag on it, a reflective tag. Well, as we got through this rock field on the top of this mountain, we saw those posts pick up. We're like, oh, let's follow the posts. And we just kept walking. And all we knew was that our camp was going to be by this lake. Mm-hmm. We got so lost. It was ridiculous. We were lost for about 12 hours.
Really? I bet your leaders were freaking out.
Our leaders were pissed.
Now, here's a quick tip before I forget, is that on these trail markers, trails have a number. They have an assigned number. So when another trail splits off of a main trail, it's assigned a different number. So if you're going from trail marker to trail marker, it will have the same, like trail number 36.
Not always.
Okay.
So in Wyoming, it just had a reflective tag. No numbers. No trail identification marker. It was just this little silver reflective tag. Mm.
Now, if you're planning a trip and you have a map, and it's an established trail map in Utah, let me say that caveat, is it will have a number, and you'll be able to stay on that trail if you're looking for those markers.
And this trail might have that now, but back then it did not. And so that's the other thing is when you go out hiking and you go out exploring, take a map, know where you're going ahead of time, and orient yourself to know the routes you're going to take.
And there was a lady who got lost on, which trail was that, Scott? Remind me of this story we just heard just a few weeks ago, a month ago, where she was lost for a month or something like that, or 2 or 3 weeks along the Great Western Trail. Is that what it's called? Anyway, so she was not adequately prepared. She had her map, but she did not know basic orienteering and how to find herself and put herself on the map and which way to go. And she eventually died. And she was on a major trail. And there are a lot of things you can do, a lot of techniques you can learn to say, okay, if there's a trail, I want to go off this trail, but I want to be able to come back to the trail.
Yep.
And that's where a map and a compass can really come in handy. You say, I don't want to be bound to this trail, but I don't want to get lost, so that you can use that as a handrail or as a backstop to say, okay, I've gone too far. Exactly, safety net.
So let's jump into the scenario. Okay, so we've talked about how to orient yourself in a city. We've talked about how to follow trail markers in the wild, just a little bit. Mm-hmm. But let's say you are lost. We say, okay, you've got a compass and a map.
Yep.
Now, how do you use that compass and map? A lot of times people think, well, just point the map north and we're good. Mm-hmm. How do you know what north is? And so that's why we're going to talk about compass and declinations. And
should we start in an urban or suburban environment first and then move?
Sure.
Okay, cool. Excuse me. All right, so you want me to head off with this?
Go ahead.
Okay,
you're looking eager beaver over there. He's ready to go.
I'm always eager to talk about this kind of stuff because, I've spent a lot of time in the backcountry, and I don't want to brag or anything, but I've spent a lot of time off trail.
He's never been lost.
And I've never been lost. And I honestly feel I cannot possibly get lost in Utah.
Boulder.
It's not possible for me to get lost in Utah. And I think that comes with experience. It comes with, of course, having the right tools and having a sense of direction. I think that is something has been lost, that people have handicapped themselves with the GPS, kind of going back to that.
I feel a big challenge coming on.
All right, cool. Bring it on.
Hey, thanks for calling K-Talk. You're on the air with Shane and Scott on Prepper Talk Radio.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you tell me which program had the Nexus coin program for an hour recently?
Personally, I cannot. I do not know which program that is. Scott?
I have no idea.
Yep. Maybe call back on the main number and see if someone else can help you.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for the call. Dang it. I was hoping it would be something that would stump.
I was hoping it'd be a navigational issue. Well, it kind of is. Where is the
true.
Nexus coin conversation in the archives of K-Talk?
Did you look that up?
No, I have no idea.
Okay.
So I kind of feel a challenge coming on for you, Shane.
Okay.
I think in the next
Bring it on.
few weeks, I'm gonna take you somewhere and leave you there, and I want to see you find your way out. Because guess what? You'll be lost. I'll blindfold you. We'll just drop you off there.
Oh, you're gonna make it real hard.
And we're gonna leave a GoPro camera with you so you can document your journey.
As long as I can feel the sun on my face.
It might be in the middle of a cave. I'll drop you in a cave, smarty.
All right, bring it on, man. Bring it on. Anyway,
make sure you take your survival medical kit with you, because if I leave you out in the wild without that, I'll feel bad.
Okay.
So I'll make sure we drop you with that.
A life straw, right?
And a life straw.
Cool.
And maybe even a compass.
A jacket?
No. I'm not that nice.
Okay. Well, as long as it's summer. No, it still gets cold up.
Still gets cold. Hypothermia can happen anytime. Yeah. So, how to triangulate your location?
Okay, so if you're in a city, urban area, that's obviously much easier to get yourself oriented as to north, south, east, west. It gets more tricky if it's overcast, if it's night, and so forth. And we talked a little bit about the streets and how you can. You can ask for directions. Talk to somebody. Ask for directions. Talk to a local.
9 times out of 10, they don't know what they're doing either.
You're probably right there. You're probably right.
If Pokemon Go is any indication,
you're not wrong.
Exactly. And if you've been on Facebook and seen the post that we did last night about today's topic, that brings a really good point. Mm-hmm. Pay attention to where you are and what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So first of all, you don't get lost if you don't have to. But there's a story out of Texas which is awesome. This group of Pokemon Go chasers are watching their phones, not watching the warning signs, do not cross this fence. Mm-hmm. It happens to be mating season or whatever you want to call it for the cattle in Texas.
The rut or whatever.
And the rut. And this bull is out in its field, and it's like, don't cross the fence because the bull's overly aggressive this time of year. And these idiots are walking through this field, chasing down some, I don't know,
monster,
Pika Poopa or whatever they're called. And they're chasing it, trying to find these things, not seeing that there's this giant bull with giant horns, and he's just like ready to gore them. Mm-hmm. And they see him at the last minute, and they are able to get to this post, and they climb up the radio post in the middle of this field. And they're sitting there waiting, and the farmer actually came out and took a picture and is laughing at them like, you morons. Mm-hmm. And he had to corral his bull out of the field so he could rescue these idiots on his land who were trespassing, first of all. So anything you're doing in life can easily detract you from knowing where you are and where you're going.
You're absolutely right.
And that's the point of that story.
Absolutely. That's a great point, is that if you're not watching where you came from, if you do that, you can retrace your steps back to a point where you can say, okay, I'm familiar with this point. I know where to go from here.
Exactly.
But if you're kind of completely distracted playing Pokemon, or otherwise,
or texting while you're driving, or you could even just be on the phone and lose track of what you're doing. It's you're incapable of multitasking to that level. Everybody is.
Everybody.
Multitasking is a lie. You can single task and alternate tasks. Mm-hmm. You cannot multitask.
Yep. Agreed.
Scientifically proven.
Agreed.
So, all you people who tell me you're a multitasker, you're misinformed. You're quick at task changing.
Yes.
You can only focus on one thing at a time. You can be aware of multiple things, but that's different. Mm-hmm. Okay, so finding out where you are. Say you've got a compass. say you've got a map. It's just a flat map that shows the grid that you're on, whatever you're in a city.
A quadrangle.
How do I find myself, Shane? Mr. I'm never lost. How do I find myself if I'm in a city, I've got a map, and I've got a compass? How do I do that?
Well, it comes down to finding landmarks. And that's why I call it triangulation, is when you have 3 different landmarks, you can use the bearings of those landmarks from where you're standing to translate that to the map to show you where you are on a map. Now, I don't think it's always necessary to know exactly where you are on a map, but maybe more a general location. So you may not need to know specifically how to triangulate, but in using reference, say whether you're in a city or whether you're in the mountains, you can say, okay, I see this peak over there, I see this peak over here, and I see this hill over here, or this valley over here I know is in where it's at in relation to me. So you can use those 3 points and guesstimate on a map, say, okay, I must be approximately in this area. And so, which can help you to say, okay, on this map I see a trail on the map, there's a trail to the north of me. So you can say, okay, these mountains, if I go to these mountains, will have gone too far. So that could be your backstop. And looks like we've got a break coming up here. Oh, yep, here we go.
We're going to triangulate after we get back. Remember, this segment's brought to you by Survival Medical. These guys have cracked the code on long-term medical storage. Your first aid kits, travel kits, anything you need, get it at survival-medical.com. And tune in this Thursday from 10 to 12, Liberty lineup, and we're going to have presidential candidate Dr. Ben Carson.
Maybe we'll come in to the studio,
which is going to be awesome. I don't think he's in the studio.
Oh,
hey.
Okay.
You missed a fun banter moment on the break. I got to say, calm down, Bear
You
Grylls.
insulted me.
I didn't insult you. I was just insulting the statement.
Okay.
Is that better?
No.
Hey, don't forget, tune in this Thursday from 10 to 12. Liberty lineup has Dr. Ben Carson on K-Talk. Our website's going to be launched in the next week or two. But this is the best station, I think, in all of Utah. I mean, you get a call in, you get to join in the conversation. Sometimes we'll talk about, little weird things like the Nexus coin, which I don't know what that is, but another caller called in. But right now we're talking about surviving being lost. We're talking about orienteering. We're talking about land navigation. This is one of probably the most quickly degraded or singularly lost skill that we've had as things have gotten more convenient in life, next to gardening. Those 2 things I think are so important, understanding where you are and where you're going, because you can do those without any technological advances. Those basics are foundational.
And if you're going out on a trip, I certainly hope that you'll be prepared with a map at least. Because there are ways to find, we haven't even got into this, there are ways to find which direction is north, south, east, or west without a compass.
Yep.
So you can always orient yourself, if you have a map, pretty darn important to have a map. If you know the area somewhat, okay, not as critical. But what I wanted to ask you all, and if somebody wanted to call in and tell me their opinion, is what I like to share, what we'd like to share are details. We'd like to teach you how to do this. Although teaching you how to do triangulation on a map is difficult on the radio. It's difficult unless we're in person. But I wanted to hear from you and see do you like hearing these things? Do you guys want to learn these details, or do you want us to just kind of skim over the tops and you guys do the research on you in your own time?
So while we're waiting for calls, let's talk about actually using that map with finding your north-south, finding where you are, triangulation. So say you've got a compass, and let's say you're out in the woods, you've got a topographical map, or even just a regular plat map, or a standard map. Sorry, not a plat map. That's for finding,
real estate.
That's for finding property lines.
I know where your brain's at.
And we've got our expert navigation guy here in studio,
yeah,
John.
I got lost on the way here, man. I was trying to listen to your
Ask for
station and get
directions.
some directions, but nothing helps.
We sent you in the wrong way on purpose. Guys, this is John with Survival Medical. He's a great friend, avid outdoorsman. He is a true patriot and just a good guy all the way around.
Shane, you've never been lost?
Never.
Wow, you've got to come bow hunting with me in Missouri. You get back in some thick cedars and you're going to get lost. No. It's going to happen.
That does sound a little bit scary to me. Yeah, the GPS won't work under the thick, like you say, the thick cedars. And
Well, wait, what was that movie?
Deliverance.
Deliverance.
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
had a
That's
flash
my
of
hometown.
Deliverance.
Yeah.
John is the hunter.
You do have nice teeth.
Shane is the hunted.
is this working, Scott?
Yeah, I'm hearing you
cool.
loud and clear.
Right.
So, John, besides taking a survival-medical.com qualified first aid kit with you when you go into the wild, because if you do get lost and hurt, you need to be able to take care of yourself. But besides that, what do you take to be able to find your way?
An understanding of the local plant life, I think, is one of the biggest ones. And every region has different ones that'll help you. But, moss grows on what side of the tree, right?
Well, that's the big question. That's another thing we can talk about is, okay, which way do spiders orient their webs?
Oh, absolutely. Deers always poop facing east. Did you know that? I mean, no, that's not true. But it's
I always
true.
pee into the wind. I mean, hey, let's get honest.
There we go.
But really, get to know your local woods.
Yeah.
You're going to be lost if you spend all of your time in an urban environment and you're in the mountains for the first time. You're going to feel lost.
Yep.
And the more time you can spend there, the more you realize that certain things grow in certain places. You're not ever going to find berries growing on the north side of a mountain. Right, because the sun doesn't shine there, and so I think that's a big aspect.
So what side does the moss grow on?
The north.
Really?
Well,
So
we can argue that too because it depends on the
Where you are.
over environment as well.
I was in a rainforest
absolutely.
in Alaska.
Exactly, it's everywhere.
And it grew everywhere. I was
Exactly.
That's right.
I was like, I'm lost.
the thing is,
I
you-
would die up here. Well, actually, I wouldn't because there was a salmon river right next to me. I'm like, well, at least I'd eat until the bears got me.
Yeah.
But I was like, there goes half of my wilderness survival stuff that I knew. It was just like,
You're right. That is totally environmental where you're at. Where I grew up in the south there in Appalachia, that is very much true. You come here and that's not true because there's a half dozen different types of mosses that I don't recognize.
And the thing is, you don't have to rely on those types of inconsistent ways to determine which way is north. There are so many different other ways you can use. You can use your watch. You can use the shadows.
But that goes back to knowing where you're going, which is the opening statement that John gave us, is understand the topography, understand the plant life of where you're going, because that makes a huge difference for you.
So the Bear Grylls situation where you happen to just parachute into some wilderness somewhere and you have to find your way out is not realistic?
Oh, no, you just pee on a headband and you're good.
Okay.
Well, pee on a headband, drink your pee.
That's right.
And
then climb down into a cave on a vine.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then make your way through the cave with a torch you've made from pine sap and don't die.
Yeah, and don't forget your pizza. So going back
Or your
to
reservation
real
at the Quality Inn, right?
Exactly.
Hey, I was speaking of New York. I was just lost there last week.
Oh, that's
Holy
right. You were
smoke. I was on Long Island all last week. And no, you're absolutely right. And having lived in Idaho for a while now, what added to that sense of being lost was the people. I felt like just claustrophobic. You got 7.5 million people on an island that's 100 miles long. I'm from Idaho. There's 1.5 million people in the whole stinking state. And I think that's an interesting point to add to this when you talk about orienteering and survival navigation is your mindset. Right?
Absolutely.
If you've ever been lost, there is a sense. I mean, I grew up playing in the woods. When all of a sudden I got lost for the first time, it was terrifying. Yeah. And I literally lost for a couple hours my wits. I was a 16-year-old kid bow hunting, and it scared the crap out of me. Man, I grew up in these woods. How am I lost?
And that's why it's so good to tell people where you're going, first of all. Always. And whenever you leave, let your loved ones know where you're going. Even if I'm just leaving for a few hours for work, my wife's like, okay, where are you going to be? Why? Because if I don't return on the time I say I'm going to return, she knows where to go looking for me. She knows where to send help.
A club soda? Is that what she's going to look for?
She'll find me every time.
So going back to you, John. So if you're in the woods there, and obviously you probably can't see mountain peaks and like we can here to orient ourselves to. So what would you have done? I mean, what should you have done when you took off from that trail to follow the track of that buck to get yourself back to that trail?
Well, what I ended up doing is wait until night. And luckily, I had to wait a few hours because the moon was so bright where it came up. It was blocking my view of the stars, and so I did. I had to wait for night, and luckily, I had been doing star shots with my dad as a surveyor just a few months earlier, and learned a lot about star navigation. And luckily, once it came up, it didn't take me 5 minutes to get back to a trail. I'd been walking in circles in a cedar thicket for hours.
That's another thing we can talk about, is walking in
but
circles.
But a big part, I think, is maps, too, having more than one.
Yes.
Scott and I had a hysterical story. We were up in Idaho looking at some land that was for sale, and we had one small copy of one small quad, right? Mm-hmm. And so obviously everything on our map correlated to what we wanted it to correlate to.
Yeah,
I see.
It was ridiculousness to a whole new level. We're like, okay, do you think that's that mountain there? It could be, but I can't see any other mountains that it could be. But it was such a small quadrant that if you blow up the area that we're looking at, it wasn't even. We weren't even close. Right. We were like 3 miles off.
Yeah, we missed it by 3-4 miles. We weren't even close. And because we didn't have enough of that information.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And you'll do that in a situation. You can make a map match. I mean, we were in a pretty unique topography. We were deep in the mountains, right? You'd think that'd be a unique topography. How do you get confused?
Right.
But you can make that map fit your mindset, right? And there was a perfect example.
Yeah, we found we were looking for triangulation, and so we looked at 3 mountain peaks. And we said, okay, that one looks like it's this one. We didn't have our compass on us, which we should have busted out the compass to see how far off we were. But we were like, we're driving around. We got a GPS. GPS wasn't available right there. So we're like, okay, first mistake. Second mistake, we've got 1/10 of the map that we need. And that's it. And we're like, that could be that one. That one lines up over there. This one, okay, so that's got to be that. We're right here. No, we're not. We're not even on the map.
The good news is Scott learned how to effectively do a Missouri moose call that day. So
I was taught by the champ. It was amazing.
You'll have to teach me sometime.
A lot of people
I'm
don't
jealous.
realize, but Missouri, we're actually famous for our moose calling. I've been a world champion there 3 times as a Missouri moose caller.
I don't know if
a Missouri world champion.
I don't know if
we've got buckles that comes in buckles.
I don't know if he's serious or what.
I know he's absolutely not. That's the best part.
So what I was trying to get to is that he should have gone into the bush with a compass at least, right?
Sure.
So that when you say, okay, here's the trail, I'm going to set a bearing, I'm going to walk off on this bearing, and to come back, I'm going to follow the opposite bearing and come back.
Absolutely.
Well, and what's funny is we didn't consider ourselves lost because we were on dirt roads.
Right.
Sure.
Exactly.
So, but here's the funny thing. We were looking specifically for land that we were going to use in a land transaction if we wanted to buy it. And we were like dreaming up this grandiose, wow, we can sell that off, and this is going to be great, and we can develop over there, and we're in the wrong place. So then when we get the correct maps and go back and take a turn where we're supposed to and look at the topography and look at the full picture, we're like, wow, this sucks. I can't sell this because this is crap. And that's the reality is we can paint ourselves into any picture we want to if our mindset's not right in that situation. So when you get lost and your mind starts freaking out, the number one thing, stop. Stop where you are and wait until you can get calm.
I think with something you've got to add to that kit, because you guys nailed the 2 biggest, right? Compass and maps. Here's one that I think most people forget, is a way to write. Because you just nailed it with your bearing, right? A lot of times you'll go, okay, I'm going to take this 120-degree bearing. I'm going this way.
You have to transfer that to the map.
And you go, okay, it was 210, right? And now you're lost.
Or you can draw that line on the map using your declination. And, I would advise all of you to jump on YouTube or wherever, jump online and learn how to do triangulation, because I'm not going to teach you here.
We're going to post a couple of videos on our Facebook page later today at Prepper Talk Radio.
We should make a moose calling video while we're at it.
All right, we can do that. Okay. Please wear your suit for that. Cause
I'll be behind the camera for this one.
And we've got a caller. Let's gamble. Let's roll the dice. Oh, he just hung up. Dang it.
Okay.
Caller, call back. We'll bring you back on. But you definitely need a writing utensil. You definitely need, I think, a small pad of paper as well. The reason I love that is because it creates another straight line that you can use. You can set your compass over here to keep oriented and draw and use your notes, and you don't have to put all of your notes on your map.
Now, keep in mind there are also different kinds of compasses. You have a base plate compass, which is what you would use on a map. You can also use it in the field, but it's better to have one that actually has a sighting mirror, so that when you're taking a bearing, you can hold it up and you can actually be accurate at taking a bearing and look through it. It has a mirror that you can, where you can see the bezel as you hold it up to your eyes and actually look toward a landmark. So you would say, okay, there's a big tree over there. I'm going to set a bearing to that tree. I'm going to walk to that tree, and then I'm going to take another bearing from there, or I'm going to head back at the same bearing.
The backside of a survival medical bag can actually be used as a reflective mirror for your compass.
There we go.
There you go. That's true story.
You are reaching there, buddy, aren't you?
Hey, we're going to gamble. We're going to bring this caller on. He called back. Hey, thanks for calling Cape Talk. You're on the air.
Yeah, okay, so my nephew, he was in Boy Scouts, and he came to me, and we were talking about my experience in Boy Scouts and my old manuals and stuff. And he's like, yeah, orienteering, we went and did that. They don't teach us compass anymore. We only had GPS, and we still got lost. I went, really? Oh, my gosh. So I had a whole group of Boy Scouts out there lost in the woods with a GPS. Had no clue. And I'm like, dude.
Yeah, that's a bad example.
You got to pull out
or a good example of being what not to do.
Yeah, awesome. What's funny is I just saw this in the news. They just had, or they either just had or they're about to have the largest signaling communications
mirror signal.
Yeah, the signal mirror.
Awesome. I did that one.
And when they do that, they're also training these scouts. They've got the ham radio operating network there, and they're teaching them land navigation. They're teaching them orienteering, and they're teaching them how to signal. And it's like
I did that one year. I loved it.
That needs to be part of every Boy Scout thing. I think every youth
Absolutely.
needs to learn those skills because they're going to come back to save them.
Yeah, and if you're in a group and one of you know, then you're much more confident.
Awesome.
And if you stop and think about it, though, giving kids skill sets like that, you never know how it's going to play out for them in the future, and it
Absolutely.
doesn't have to necessarily be a function of just. Oh gosh, I can't even think of it anymore.
It's a life
it doesn't
skill.
have to be in other words, you don't have to have a major catastrophe.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to have some horrible thing happen for that to be a very useful skill set in life. And
Absolutely.
and that just carries over. It teaches trigonometry. It teaches basic skills that are just really fundamental for being human.
Well, and the most important thing is it increases their confidence level, so that when something does happen, they know how to get through it. And we're actually running to the end of our show. Thanks for calling in.
Have a great.
Thanks.
Thank you, everyone, for listening in. Remember, Dr. Ben Carson's going to be on from 10 to 12 on Thursday, and this hour has been brought to you by Survival Medical. Thank you, John. It's tougher than everything.
But tougher than nature, man. That's
Tougher
the thing
than
to
nature.
remember. Survival medical, tougher than nature. What does that mean? It means it's waterproof, it's dirt-proof, and we've even found a way to beat time. So
it's time
you
proof.
can find our products at survival-medical.com. We've got one for every aspect of your outdoor needs, your preparedness needs.
Love this guy.
So thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate your show.
See ya.
Thank you.
You can go back to your own garage,